Hello YouTube, and thank you for tuning in as always to Auto Transport for Dummies, where we talk about all the things you dummies want to know out there. So in this clip, we're actually just going to be talking about some of the expectations that people have that we think are a little bit sort of misplaced, if you will. And also, on a second note, welcome into our humble abode, our new company offices here in Tempe, Arizona, right off the lake here. Very nice location. Hope you're enjoying the view in the video. But anyways, back to the video. So what we're talking about is expectations, because most people have never shipped a car before. They don't really know anything about the industry. Their experience with truck drivers is probably in their mind like a package is being dropped off at their house from Amazon. And the funny thing is, those are actually not even truck drivers. Those are just the delivery trucks. Totally different thing. One is a truck driver who's going literally coast to coast, like over the road, OTR. One is just a delivery driver. Those are totally different jobs. One goes home to his family every night. One sleeps in a truck at a truck stop and is in different states every single day. I've done the job as a car hauler. I've done the job as an over-the-road trucker. I can literally tell you how tough of a job that is, how demanding it is. I mean, it's not even a job. It's a complete lifestyle. Like, it takes over your life. Obviously, there's no time for dates or hanging out with your girlfriend or going home and spending time with your kids hardly when you're over the road. I mean, that stuff just doesn't exist. So the reason I'm sort of giving that as the backdrop as to what we're talking about here is because a lot of times we'll get calls from clients when we have an order dispatch, and mid-flight, when that vehicle is being transported, people tend to sort of assume or expect a certain degree or level of service that really is just way off in this industry. Like, their level of what they think it should be is nowhere where we think it will be or should be. Another thing to note is that most of the drivers in the industry now are not red-blooded Americans. They're not born in the USA. Most of them are on visas or just off visas. They are recruited, and probably 90% of the car haulers now are Russian, Ukrainian, Kazakhstanian, I don't know if I'm saying that right, drivers from the Middle East. That's pretty much who's driving. Occasionally you'll run into a trucker, like an owner operator, maybe that looks like me, but a lot of the time, not really. The pay is just not that great. And another thing is, Americans don't, like with everything, like with fuel, like we get upset if fuel gets too expensive, right? Just like, in the same way, people get too upset if auto shipping gets too expensive, or if shipping in general gets too expensive. So the solution to that is we have to keep bringing in immigrants, and we have to keep bringing people into the country to drive trucks. And this isn't just auto transport, this is freight in general. Like, if you think people hauling hauling freight in this country are red-blooded Americans, you're completely out of step. Okay, just take a trip down to your local truck stop. You're gonna find out who's driving trucks, okay? So that's kind of why the service quality is where it is, and it also answers the questions about, like, hey, why does this person not know English, blah, blah, blah. That's just is what it is. We understand everybody wants a better quality service for everything, but it's just one of those things where this is what it is. We can't change it. The market forces have brought us here. And we just work with what we have, right? Obviously, if you want a higher level service, that's out there, but it's not going to come at that highly competitive rate to move your car versus, every other transport. You'd have to outpay by a lot to recruit one of the top companies. Now, the second thing I want to bring up when it comes to people's sort of misunderstandings with how this process works is the scheduling and how trucks pick up loads, because most people have a very misunderstanding as to how this actually works, because they have a little bit of a expectation that they think their order, to them obviously is very important, But they don't understand to trucks, it's really not important. Trucks need several cars on a load to make a load work. They need several cars on a route to make that route work. So one car is not really too relevant to them. And the other thing about it is time is money and money is time. So if you're not available when that truck rolls through a particular area, and they're trying to move, they have to keep moving. They can't wait, for you to be available on a certain day or not be available. Like, you have to sort of just be pretty flexible with these guys, because what happens is if we get a call on a load and this truck driver is like, hey, Wes, we can load that Jaguar for you tomorrow morning, 7 to 10 a.m. blah blah blah. And then we relay that over to the customer. The customer's like, oh, I'm sorry, I have a golf, a tee time tomorrow. I can't do that till 5 p.m. Well, the trucks might wait around a couple hours, but they're not gonna wait till 5 p.m. for you. Very rarely will they wait till 5 p.m. Now, the only time they might wait that long is if you really wanna overpay for them to wait around. And the reason they're not gonna wait is because your car is not the only car available to them. There are other vehicles and other loads that are sitting in your area right now that are available for that truck to pick up. So if you're going to be difficult and not going to be available, they're just going to grab another load. And this is one of those things people don't realize. They think it's like, oh, they can select the time. They want the truck to come between this time and this time. It's like, sure, you can put all these requests in that you want, but when we get inquiries, trucks pretty much determine when they can get something and how much they want to be paid to get it. And everyone is at the mercy of the trucks that have availability to move loads. And another thing to understand, you have to realize, is that at any given time, there's probably 100 cars, or maybe not quite that many, but at least 10 to 20 cars for every spot on a truck that could possibly move them. So there's always more loads and more freight out there versus how many trucks there are to move them. There's never enough trucks to move all the freight out there. So you are competing with all the other freight that needs to be moved. So if you're not going to be available, you make it super difficult. I'm only available on the weekends. I'm only available after 3 p.m. All these factors just lead to you being delayed. So that's, this is why we're always talking about being flexible. How flexibility is by far and away the biggest and most important factor with having a successful transport, because the more demands you place on the order, the more difficult of a customer you want to be, the more likely it is you're going to end up unhappy, you're going to overpay, you're going to get burned, all these things. You have to understand how this industry works. And when you're putting all these conditions on your load, you're just stacking the deck higher and higher, and that deck is going to crumble. It's going to crumble somewhere in there, something that you're planning on, like a flight time or a car getting delivered, and you got a date set up with this car getting delivered an hour before your date. Something is going to go wrong, like it always does, and you're going to be disappointed. So the best way to handle any auto transport is always with extreme flexibility. It doesn't mean you have to wait a month or anything like that. All we ever ask when we're setting these transports up for people on Air Ride is just 2 or 3 days, a 2 or 3 day window, preferably during the week. It might be a newsflash, but trucking companies like to take time off too. And a lot of times they do it on the weekend, especially Sunday. Sunday's almost ghost town. We don't get calls, we don't get texts hardly. Monday comes around, our phones are exploding. Trucks are calling us on every load we have. So you have to understand these things, okay? If you want to move a car, just figure out a Monday through Thursday, a Monday through Wednesday where you can be reasonably available within a couple of hours if a trucking company happens to inquire on that order, and then we can get it set up and they can come, load it for you. But trying to put all these conditions all over the load is always just stacking the deck, and it's going to just make the transport more difficult all the way around. Side topic, rabbit trail I could go down for just a second, but the next obvious question probably a lot of people ask is why? Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why, okay? It's because Americans, like with many things, like with the price of gas or whatever, we don't want to pay what something costs. Like, why do you think China is able to ship so much stuff in here? We don't want to pay the cost to we don't want to pay $3,000 for an iPhone. If we had to manufacture iPhones here, it would be 3,000 or 4,000 for an iPhone or something like that, I imagine. People don't want to pay it, right? So what that means is people don't want to pay the rates that it would take if we had people from America that were born here driving trucks. It'd probably be 2,000 for one car to go coast to coast right now. I'm sure it would be double the price, right? People don't want to pay it. People don't want to pay the rates as they are now. So it's just one of those things where it's like the market determines these things, and Americans don't want to pay a lot of money for transport. So with that, you can't also expect the service quality to be at like a 10 out of 10 with these trucking companies. Now, of course, if you want a 10 out of 10 white glove trucking company to come move your car, sure, we can locate that, but is it going to cost the same rate? Obviously not. It's going to be significantly more expensive. So that's one of the big things is people are kind of like, they want a better degree of service quality with the trucking companies, but they still at the same time don't want to pay for that. And so that's where, at some point, the pedal's got to, I don't know what that saying is, gravel's got to meet the road, or drawing a blank. Somebody put it in the comments. Something's got to meet the road, but it's like, now that pretty much sums up what I wanted to say about the sort of misunderstandings people have as it comes to the drivers, the trucking companies, the service quality, the scheduling, how these trucks operate. And also just give these people like a break, because I did this job too. And frankly, I think we should all be thankful that there are people that are still willing to literally sacrifice their entire week, their livelihood, not livelihood, but their lives, at least to some extent, to haul freight around, because it really is not an 8 to 5 job. This is like, the closest comparison I can make, at least the way I feel, is it's like you're deployed. It's like you're deployed in another country or something, because you're living on the road, you're living in your truck. You can't hardly pull into like little good you can't pull your big truck into like a nice restaurant. You got to park it a mile away, walk to a Starbucks, walk to a Chipotle. I mean, it's not the job for the faint of heart. And then I just imagine being in that position, and then you got some client after a rough day where you've been working all day, sweating your ass off, like loading these cars. Some of these days out in the sun, it's like 100 plus degrees. Man, I've loaded cars in New Orleans, I remember in the summer, and I literally looked like I just jumped in a swimming pool within like 10. I mean, those trailers get so hot inside those things, and you got to load cars in there and strap them down and everything else, roll around on the floor, get greasy, strap them down. I mean, it is not an easy job, and it's something we should all be very thankful for, that there's people willing to do it. And really, the true cost is much higher than what we are paying currently. I hope people understand. And lately, with this last year, when fuel prices went through the moon, we were amazed that it didn't get a lot higher. Like the cost didn't get a lot higher to ship cars. But if you happen to see this video, hey, give your driver a tip, give them a break, let them know you're happy that they're transporting your car. You're gonna find a much happier driver. But what I was mentioning a second ago was, yeah, I mean, if you're driving a truck and you've worked your ass off all day, and some dickhead calls you and barks at you like, hey, why haven't you gotten here to pick up my car? You're an hour late, all this type of stuff. I mean, back when I hauled cars, if I ran into some client like that, I would literally just cancel the order off Central Dispatch and just F it. I'm not going to deal with that. I mean, that's what the clients, I think, need to understand, is that these are all owner operators. I mean, they do what they want to do. I mean, we dispatch out these orders, but they can, if they have problems with you, they're just going to cancel it. They'll get some other order to pick up. You're not the only car in town to pick up, not by a long shot. So if you make it difficult, it takes nothing but a click of a button for them to cancel that order and go grab something else. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. And so it's just one of those things where people's beliefs about how this all works are so, I feel like, almost ass backwards as to the reality. The reality is we should be happy that we have somebody coming to move it. We should be thankful there is somebody that is still doing this job. And it shouldn't be the other way around where we're like expecting somebody to show up at this time and this schedule window, all this type of stuff. There's not people lining up to haul cars. I mean, this is not a job where, like, you put a job listing out and there's 800 replies. There is not. Okay, this is why every trucking company in America has recruiters and everything else. They can't. The military probably has better luck recruiting people, right? So let's all keep that in mind. Anyway, we've had an incredibly successful 2022. Pretty much blew away all of our records from before. A lot of people finding us on YouTube. So if you find us on YouTube, totally love you. Hit us up on airride.com, AIRRYD.com. We're trying to put out as much info as we can. So if you have a question, you have a video topic you want us to cover, put it in the comments. Maybe we will. Always looking for new comments these days. We've covered a lot of the ones that, we've covered a lot. But anyway, we'll let you go from there. Take it easy. Hope you guys had a great new year. Happy hauling. See you on the next one.